Marines get on board to talk to OWS Week as the other 99ers attempt to outflank the Bank of America. Wisconsin lends an ear or two to Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., while training and preparation continues all over the U.S. for the coming Mayday demos. And the movement's talking heads, well, they talk to us, all in this week's program.
We are veterans! We are veterans! We are the 99%! We are the 99%!
American military veterans from all branches of service have been involved in Occupy Wall Street since day one.
Nothing tough about it. Nothing! I'm a two-time Iraq War veteran!
Veterans are full-fledged members of the 99%, dealing with high unemployment, homelessness, and inadequate health care. They are also serious about the oath they took to protect the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. OWS Week is pleased to exclusively present Occupy Marines in this week's episode, in their own words.
Why do I occupy?
Because it's the right thing to do.
Because all my life I have struggled and clawed and climbed that hill.
Because no matter what happens, I'll never be broken.
I want the same for the occupiers.
I want them to climb that hill and claw their way back and fight and never give up.
I occupy because I'm called to do it.
Because without this hope, this belief in something greater than ourselves, we're nothing.
We have nothing, and our lives are meaningless.
And that's something I will never believe.
Our lives have meaning.
We do have purpose here on this earth.
And we can fight back and never give up.
We are here for one another.
We are our brothers and sisters' keeper.
We were asked today by a naysayer to explain what Occupy Marines are doing for OWS. We replied with a more accurate question. What are Occupy Marines not doing? Occupy Marines are not sitting on their behinds watching the 1% rip out the heart of America.
Occupy Wall Street! Occupy Wall Street! Occupy everything!
America dialed 911 and we stood up. We answered America's call. We have watched since September 17th this wondrous event unfold. We have watched as this small demonstration took hold of the world, and we quickly understood that they are not going away. So we listened more. We listened to the demonstrators. We listened to the public respond, and we observed how quickly Americans became divided. How these knucklehead naysayers, day after day, discredit what OWS is doing.
Occupy IBW, I think, are very, very close allies, I guess. I know I, as a member of IBW, have Occupy's back, and I feel like Occupy has our back, because we all want to end these wars, and we all want each other to be taken care of properly.
Well, naysayers, Occupy Marines have a message for you. Continue sitting on your backsides while the 1% laugh at you, lie to you, tell you to shut your soup coolers and mind your own business. Go ahead and quibble, naysayers, while Marines once again stand up for the future of America. And when the day comes, when OWS hits history books across the world, and we alongside them, that day, when someone asks you if you were there, naysayers, you're going to say, "No, I was too scared. I did not have the nerve to fight for my country. I did not have the courage to confront the problems eroding America. But I did feel confident enough to attack those brave souls who stood up for America. I did fight to disregard their message." Say that when asked, naysayers, and return to your life remembering that you are insignificant to history, Do not worry, naysayers. The Marines have your back. Again.
Basically, our whole mission was to secure profit for private contractors, specifically in my case, Brown and Root, which is part of Halliburton, which then Vice President Dick Cheney used to be the CEO of. So we were basically putting our lives on the line, coming into conflict with Iraqis on a daily basis in order to secure these convoys going from base to base, a lot of times running empty trucks, just because the more trucks on the road the company had, the more profit they could make.
Acquired! Acquired!
This week, the Occupy movement faced what has become endemic police violence and intimidation again. The first incident occurred when marchers occupied Nicollet Mall, a shopping and dining district for the wealthy in Minneapolis, the largest city in the state of Minnesota. There, the police also grabbed compliant bystanders seemingly without cause, while physically threatening members of the media. Though witnesses and other journalists cited these assaults, the city's police chief admitted to only one news cameraman having been, in his words, quote, unnecessarily interfered with, unquote. The interference involved confiscating that journalist's camera and slamming it into the ground, destroying both it and its video. 12 people were arrested, but Occupy Minnesota says it has plans to reoccupy the mall.
Ladies and gentlemen, you cannot lay on the ground. I'm not laying on the ground.
In New York City and Washington, D.C., so-called sleep-outs and sleepful protests are continuing on the sidewalks around the New York Stock Exchange and Bank of America, where a group of occupiers spend the night. Municipal police, including the NYPD, now infamous for its documented excesses against the Occupy movement, are largely prevented from arresting the participants due to a law that specifically allows political expression on a public sidewalk. However, illegal arrests have occurred in D.C. And in Chicago, Illinois, doctors, patients, and occupiers barricaded themselves inside a mental health clinic slated for closure as part of the city's austerity plans. In all, the city's mayor, Rahm Emanuel, former White House chief of staff to President Obama, plans to close half of its 12 mental health clinics across the 606 square kilometers, 234 square miles of the sprawling metropolis. The Occupy Chicago movement views these measures as a proven public health disaster, similar to the destructive consequences created by then California Governor Ronald Reagan when he closed significant mental health facilities in his state in the 1960s. Not unnoticed by Occupy Chicago, Mr. Emanuel is a liberal Democrat, while Mr. Reagan was a conservative Republican. Two supposed polar opposites in America's political ideology. Yet the policies of the two regarding public mental health, nearly identical.
So it's part of like a world mood right now. You've got the Occupy going on here, you have the Wisconsin going on, and you've got stuff going on all over the world where they're...
And we hope that it maintains the same level of civility that it has maintained so far. And that's the dangerousness, the danger of the hour, is that we must put people to work and keep people content in their jobs and in their homes. It's the key to our system. Both our economic system survives off of faith and our political system survives off of faith. If people lose faith in the capacity of the government to solve the problem, if people lose faith in the economy, and that's increasingly happening with people out of work and not being able to get more for what they earn, then people lose faith in both the economic system and the political system, and the faith of the system begins to shred, and that can manifest itself in some very, very unfortunate ways.
Occupy Los Angeles, D.C., and other groups organized a run on the Bank of America and a Move Your Money relay, calling the massive American multinational a giant raging hurricane of theft and fraud. The intent of this action was to continue to encourage Americans to move their funds out of the large banks, which have so ruthlessly foreclosed on a staggering number of homes in the U.S. Such huge institutions were bailed out of certain bankruptcy with billions in taxpayer money. The funds of hardworking people, they say, should be moved out of such organizations and into community banks and local credit unions. While on the other side of the continent, Occupy New York University assailed J.P. Morgan Chase by invoking the movement's characteristic knack for street theater. J.P. Morgan Chase is the leader of home foreclosures and evictions in New York. In its quest for the university to cut ties with J.P. Morgan Chase, Occupy NYU evicted the bank in effigy.
I'm a sophomore here at NYU, and I'm part of a group called NYU for Occupy Wall Street. And NYU for OWS is asking the administration of NYU to cut our university's financial ties with JP Morgan Chase until they halt foreclosures in New York. We believe that we can use our leverage as an enormous university with prestige and financial resources to actually make a difference in the foreclosure crisis. We're doing this in solidarity with New York Communities for Change, which is a community organization that's been working on this campaign and has been getting cities like Hempstead and Ithaca to move their money from Chase in order to send a message that New York stands with the community and that we want housing to be treated as a human right and not as a commodity.
The movement is gearing up for Mayday, a holiday for the 99%. It is a day for people to come together across all those lines which too often divide us: race, class, gender, religion, artificial political dogma, and challenge the systems that create these divisions. When we come together, we recognize the common struggles we face and the common interests we have. With this collective power, we can begin to build the world we want to see. Another world is possible. On May 1st, 2012, millions of people throughout the world will take to the streets to unite in a general strike against a system that does not work for us. Don't go to work, don't go to school, don't shop, take the streets.
I'm working on May 1st, and in particular, working on organizing a bunch of public art and performance on that day. May 1st is important for a number of reasons. One, it's sort of an historic moment. So this particular May 1st came about when both labor unions and the Immigrant Workers' Justice Coalition came to Occupy and said, we want to work together in order to make a bigger May 1st celebration than we've had in quite some time. And this is interesting because traditionally in the United States, May 1st has been a labor holiday. Started out as Workers' Day, International Workers' Day, and it was celebrated by labor unions for many, many years, and then it was sort of squashed by red baiting in the 40s and 50s. It was actually renamed into Law Day and then Loyalty Day in order to sort of distance the United States from, communist and socialist movements around the world.
Well, May Day means to me, Mayday historically was a day for workers and immigrants. So basically, as you notice, workers really don't have any rights anymore. So we're trying to make a stand on May Day for workers' rights and also immigrants that have no rights.
May Day means to me a day without the 99%. What does that look like? No one shows up, no one works, no one drives your cab, no one teaches your kids, no one delivers the milk, no one delivers the mail, no one cops the streets, no one puts out fires. What happens?
I think it's great for families and children to come to, even though they were a little threatening, the police. But I think we handled that really well, and there weren't a lot of, there was a choice. You could do civil disobedience, about crossing the bridge, or you could just come and show up and be part of it.
Opting out of the system, stopping the gears, throwing as many wrenches as possible, just not participating. But also, it opens up the space to make something really special in the city, getting people to know one another and see one another, and having mutual aid is something that becomes integral to living in like spaces with folks. So that's what excites me most about Mayday, and like I don't think it'll be the only day where we choose not to participate in the system. I hope it's a recurring thing that happens every month or as frequently as possible. You start seeing more and more people just not participating. Yeah, and I think it's a real possibility at like destabilizing power and decentralizing it, and like really showing the ruling class that like, no, we can say no to you.
We targeted Mayday to create a base for converting a moment into a movement and see whether students and workers, documented and undocumented, can join in the struggle. The way Occupy has articulated it, which is a bunch of social movements coming together as individuals, as people, recognizing that the problem is the structure that perpetuates social and political inequality.
Mayday this year is different than the past 130 years of Mayday, because Occupy, when it came onto the scene, we said Occupy means to resist, reclaim, and recreate. And we are reclaiming the history of Mayday, which is an American holiday, but has been kind of forgotten over the past decades as a workers' holiday, a holiday for the working class. It's a real Labor Day and represents the power that used to belong to the people when the labor movement was still strong in the early 20th century, and the people had the power and rose up in numbers like we haven't seen before in the past couple decades, because dissent is not popular anymore. It's been moved to the side and it's been suppressed down, but it's been down there boiling. And so what we're doing with Mayday this year is taking the lid off of that pot and asking people, what is it that you want to see? What is it that you want to reclaim and resist against and recreate for the world?
Mayday means coming together and finding better solutions than we currently have.
Where these bridges are going to be made, and they're finally going to be shown in a way that I think is really, really fascinating regarding marching and regarding the concert, regarding actions that are going on. Is we're finally focusing on a lot of issues that the communities care about, and I think that's really, really important.
Do you want to talk about any of those issues that are?
Yeah. So like on part of. So one of the interesting things about Mayday, one of our biggest partners are a lot of the immigrant rights organizations, and seeing that build has been like really, really interesting to me, because that's a lot of like my background is in immigrant rights, and you know, in this country we have like such a big problem with people being oppressed and people being used with their status, like keeping their statuses at a certain level so they can continue to be exploited. And I think, you know, Mayday itself was something that was started like back in the 30s, and it was in Chicago, and it was something that was very, very labor-oriented, and that's great and fantastic. But it got to a point where like Mayday around the world is an international workers' day, and even a holiday in some places, in most places, and it's not in the U.S. And so something that happened 2006 was the immigrant workers. You know, they rose up and they took the streets, and they really brought back this whole like Mayday action, and this sort of like vibrance energy, you know, this vibrant energy that really, really took off.
Because when you withdraw, when you don't go to work and don't go to school and don't shop, you realize there's all this space when you pull back from all that, when you pull back out of everything that's going on and open up to so many new possibilities. It's just one moment that is going to explode with energy and possibility.
So I think one of the key, the reason that the union and the immigrant workers coming together is so important here is that there's this realization that all of our struggles are one, and that the reason that all of our struggles are one is because there's this sort of overarching theme to the system that society is engaging in right now. It's the same system that decides that a human being can be an illegal commodity that can be, undocumented in order to suppress its wages and their wages and their rights. Is the same system that wants to take away organizing rights from workers, and it's the same system that decides that people should graduate college with so much student debt that they have to take some career that they don't love rather than doing something that they would actually enjoy.
I'm really interested to see what May 2nd is going to look like.